Logan Clark tucked his son, Ethan, into his bed for what felt like the millionth time. "Good night, buddy," he said, planting a kiss on Ethan's forehead. Ethan's eyes widened with fear. "Dad, can I sleep with you and Mom tonight? I don't like being alone." Logan sighed. This had become a nightly routine. "Sorry, champ, but you need to start sleeping in your own bed. You're a big boy now." But Ethan's pleading eyes melted Logan's resolve, and he found himself giving in once again. Weeks turned into months, and Ethan's insistence on sleeping in his parents' bed showed no signs of stopping. Logan and his wife Sarah tried everything: reward charts, new bedding, even a nightlight shaped like Ethan's favorite superhero. But nothing worked. Logan seriously hoped that his son would be able to sleep in his own bed again. He was struggling to get a good night's rest after Ethan started sleeping in their bed. Logan and Sarah didn't know where this was coming from. Everything was fine. Ethan had no problem sleeping in his own bed or his room, but then, all of a sudden, something changed. Of course, they loved their son, but his coming to sleep in their bed every night was not only hurting their relationship as a couple, but it was ruining their sleep pattern. Ethan took up most of the space in the bed, which led to Logan eventually having to sleep on the single couch in their bedroom. Every morning, Logan would have a stiff neck and a sore back. He just couldn't understand why his son needed to sleep in their bed every night. It was becoming a bad habit that they just couldn't break. When they tried to talk to Ethan about it, he didn't say anything. All he said was that he was scared of the dark. However, Logan wasn't convinced by this since he'd never had problems with the dark before. One morning, as Logan stood outside waiting for Ethan's school bus to come and pick him up, he never expected the bus driver to come out and talk to him. Mr. Johnson was a friendly guy who was loved by all. He was a safe driver, and Logan appreciated the way he looked out for each and every child on the bus. Little did he know that Mr. Johnson would reveal something about Ethan to him that would make his blood boil, prompting him to seek answers. "Mr. Clark, I noticed something about your son. I think you need to talk to him." Logan found it strange that Mr. Johnson would say that. "What's wrong, Mr. Johnson? What did you see?" Logan was eager to know since Ethan had become so reliant on sleeping in their bed at night. It was then that Mr. Johnson revealed something to Logan that would leave him shocked to his core. Logan and his wife Sarah lived happily in suburbia. They were the proud parents of Ethan, their 7-year-old son. Ethan was a quiet boy and mostly kept to himself. Ethan had only one friend at school whom he usually talked about. He preferred to read in his room or play video games. Sarah and Logan weren't worried that he was an introverted child. In fact, they welcomed it. They wanted Ethan to be whoever he wanted to be. His grades were good, and his teachers always complimented him on his excellent reading skills. However, that would soon change when Ethan's parents started receiving letters from his teacher. It seemed that his grades had taken a massive slump over the last month, and he wasn't doing as well as he used to. When Logan saw how his grades had gone down, he decided to have a little talk with his son. "Buddy, what's going on? Why are your grades slipping like this?" Ethan avoided eye contact, fidgeting with his hands. "I don't know, Dad. I guess I just don't like school these days." Logan frowned, sensing something wasn't right. "Is there something bothering you, Ethan? You can tell me." After a moment of hesitation, Ethan sighed. "It's nothing really, just stuff. I don't like school anymore. Do you think I can change schools?" Logan was taken aback by his son's statement. He always loved the school and the teachers. What had changed? "I don't think we can put you into another school at this point, buddy. Everything is here. My work, Mom's work. We can't just move. It will disrupt a lot of things." Ethan just looked down. Something was definitely going on. Little did they know that it was about to get worse. Logan knew there was more to it, but he decided to give Ethan some space. However, as the days went by, Ethan's behavior became more withdrawn. He would come home from school and retreat to his room without a word. Concern gnawed at Logan and Sarah's hearts, and they knew they had to get to the bottom of it. One evening, as they sat at the dinner table, Logan broached the subject again. "Ethan, we've noticed you haven't been yourself lately. Is there anything going on at school? Anything you want to talk about?" But Ethan wasn't saying anything. Instead, he decided to do something very unexpected. That night, as the family had settled into their beds, Logan and Sarah heard their bedroom door creak open. When Logan looked up, he saw his son standing there, looking slightly embarrassed. "Dad, can I sleep in here tonight, please?" Logan didn't hesitate for a minute. He pulled open the covers and ushered his son in. not knowing that it was his biggest mistake yet. And that's how it began. What Logan and his wife Sarah thought would be a one-time thing turned into a nightly ritual. Every night, Ethan would walk into his parents' bedroom with some excuse for why he couldn't sleep in his own bed. Logan loved his son, but he couldn't deny that Ethan was causing them all kinds of problems. For starters, Ethan took up all of the space in the bed, which prompted Logan to sleep on the single couch in the bedroom. This in turn resulted in Logan having a stiff neck as well as a painful back. He just couldn't manage to get a proper night's sleep ever since his son had moved into their bedroom. What's more, he couldn't remember when last he and Sarah had some alone time, and Sarah wasn't helping the cause. The more Logan discussed the problem with her, the more she shrugged off his concerns. "He's clearly afraid of something, Logan. We can't turn him away in his time of need. He has to stay." Sarah's insistence on accommodating Ethan's nightly visits grated on Logan's nerves. He understood her maternal instincts, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something deeper was at play. One evening, after yet another night of discomfort on the cramped couch, Logan confronted Sarah. "We can't keep going on like this, Sarah. Ethan needs to learn to sleep on his own." Sarah's eyes flashed with defiance. "And what if he's truly scared, Logan? What if something is haunting him? We can't just abandon him. He is only 7 years old." Logan sighed, frustration bubbling within him. "I'm not saying abandon him, but we need to figure out what's really going on. He wasn't like this before." But Sarah remained resolute, refusing to entertain the idea of pushing Ethan out of their bed. Logan felt a growing divide between them, a chasm widening with each passing night. "No, I don't want to make him uncomfortable. Just leave him be. Things will work out on its own. Ethan will come around, but for now, we must support him." As days turned into weeks, the tension between Logan and Sarah reached a breaking point. Their once harmonious marriage now bore the strain of sleepless nights and unresolved conflicts. Logan found himself withdrawing, seeking solace in his work and the few hours of rest he could manage on the couch. Sarah, on the other hand, doubled down on her support for Ethan, growing increasingly distant from Logan. Their communication dwindled to mere exchanges of necessity, devoid of the warmth and understanding that once defined their relationship. Logan felt adrift in his own home, a stranger navigating the wreckage of what was once his sanctuary. But during this time, something strange happened to their son. It was a casual Thursday evening, and Logan was exhausted after a hard day at work. That night, he decided to tuck Ethan into his own bed. "Dad, what if something bad happens?" the little boy asked innocently, staring up at his exhausted father. He had cried earlier, begging his dad to let him sleep in their bed. "Nothing bad is going to happen, champ." Logan sighed and rubbed at her swollen red eyes. "Mom and I are just down the hall. Everything will be fine," he said. But he had no idea what would happen that night. Logan began walking toward the door, looking forward to some much-needed rest. "Dad, wait," Ethan called before he could shut the door. Logan paused in his steps and turned toward the young boy. He noticed the horror behind his son's eyes. He didn't want to be alone. "Please, Dad, can I sleep in your room just for tonight?" he begged. But Logan knew he had to put his foot down. He shook his head, but he would regret this decision. "I'll see you in the morning, buddy," he sighed and closed the door behind him. Suddenly, Ethan's bedroom was shrouded in darkness. Logan had never felt quite so tired before. He headed straight for his bedroom, and when he stepped through the door, his wife was already in bed. She was reading a book when he walked into the bedroom, but as soon as she noticed his presence, she put the book down and looked at him. "Where is Ethan?" she asked. Lately, they had been having disagreements about their son's sleeping habits, and Logan wasn't in the mood for a fight. "He's going to try and sleep in his own bed tonight," he explained to his wife, and slipped into the covers beside her. But she did not seem happy. "Logan, he isn't going to get any sleep if he's in there scared all night," Sarah said, folding her arms across her chest. But she had no idea what her son would go through just hours later. But Logan didn't want to hear it. He loved and cared about his son, but he couldn't remember the last time he had a full night's sleep. "He will be fine. He just needs to spend one night in his bedroom, and he will see it's completely safe. I need my bed back, Sarah," he said, and turned onto his side. He thought he was doing what was best for his son, but he would soon come to regret this decision. Sarah rolled her eyes. She felt sympathetic to her son. She could remember her childhood and how often she would go to bed terrified of the dark. Sarah just hoped her son would manage to get some sleep. She knew the current sleeping arrangement wasn't working, but she wanted to protect Ethan. Logan was snoring beside her within minutes, and before long, she knew it was time to put her book down and get some sleep, but she wouldn't get much sleep that night. Sarah placed the book down beside her and turned onto her side. She was worried about Ethan, but all she could do was try to get some rest. As soon as her head hit the pillow, she closed her eyes and tried to fall asleep. Logan was long gone, catching up on the sleep he'd missed. It only took a few minutes for her to start drifting off, but as soon as she did, she heard a disturbing sound that had her sitting up in bed. Sarah was just about to fall asleep when she suddenly heard a sound from across the hallway. It was the sound of her son's voice begging for help. The second she heard those sounds, Sarah jolted up in bed. To her surprise, her husband had done the same. The sounds had woken him up too. "What's going on?" he asked sleepily. Sarah didn't respond as she jumped out of bed and reached for her nightgown. Logan did the same. He could hear his son's sobs from down the hall and knew something was terribly wrong. He and Sarah dashed through the narrow hallway until they reached their son's closed bedroom door. Sarah's heart was pounding viciously in her chest. In the blink of an eye, Logan threw the bedroom door open and switched on the light. But they were not prepared for what they saw. As soon as Logan flipped the light switch, the room lit up, and they were met with a confusing sight. Ethan was still in bed, crying. But he wasn't awake. He was lying on his back, tossing back and forth as he cried for his mother and father's help. Logan and Sarah stared at each other for a second before rushing to his side. He was having some kind of nightmare. Logan pulled his son into his arms, speaking gently to him until he woke up. When Ethan opened his eyes, he continued to cry. "Hey, little buddy," Logan tried to speak gently to his son in an attempt to calm his nerves. But the little boy wouldn't stop crying. "It's okay, Mom and Dad are here," he said as he lifted his son into his arms and stood up from the floor. Ethan was in a horrible state. Logan and Sarah shared a knowing glance before they walked their son back to their bedroom. They couldn't leave him alone after what had happened. Logan sat on the bed with his son, wondering what on earth was happening to him. "What happened in your dream?" he asked, hoping for some answers. But the little boy seemed hesitant to answer. He rubbed at his red and swollen eyes and shook his head. "It was just a nightmare," he said. Logan couldn't help but feel like something was going on with his son, but Ethan refused to talk about it. He kept saying that it was just a nightmare, but something was haunting his son, and he had no idea what it was. "Okay, bud," he sighed, knowing that he wasn't going to get any answers out of him. He tucked Ethan into their bed before walking toward the couch. He just hoped he would be able to get some sleep that night. But Logal lay awake for hours, thinking about his son and the sudden change in his behavior. Everything seemed to happen at once. From his son's grades dropping to him, developing some kind of fear of being alone. It all happened so fast, but he refused to tell his father what was going on. Logan closed his eyes and tried to get some sleep, but it seemed impossible. He couldn't stop thinking about Ethan and his nightmare. He felt terrible for leaving his son alone in his bedroom, and he didn't know where to go from there. But he knew he had to fix whatever was going on. He loved his son, but he needed his sleep and alone time with his wife. But how could he help when Ethan was hiding things from him? It took some time, but Logal eventually managed to fall asleep. But in the next few days, the situation didn't get any better. Each night, as Logan lay on the uncomfortable couch, his mind churned with frustration and despair. He longed for the days when he could hold Sarah close without the presence of a barrier between them, both physical and emotional. But what tormented him most was the knowledge that his son was suffering, trapped in a cycle of fear and dependency. Logan wanted to protect Ethan, to shield him from whatever demons plagued him, but he felt powerless in the face of the unknown. His heart ached with anguish as he watched his family unravel before his eyes, torn apart by the very love that once bound them together. Driven by desperation, Logan resolved to uncover the truth, whatever the cost. He couldn't let his family be divided in this way. But no matter how hard he searched, the answers eluded him, slipping through his fingers like grains of sand. Ethan remained tight-lipped, his silence a barrier Logan couldn't breach. As the nights grew longer and the shadows deeper, Logan felt himself teetering on the brink of despair. He couldn't continue like this, trapped in a cycle of uncertainty and fear. But just when Logan was on the verge of surrender, a glimmer of hope emerged from the darkness. A chance encounter with a neighbor, a retired psychologist, led Logan down a new path, one that promised insight and understanding. Armed with renewed determination, Logan embarked on a journey of discovery, determined to unravel the mystery that shrouded his son's nightmares. He knew the road ahead would be fraught with obstacles, but he refused to falter. For Logan was not just a father grappling with his son's fears. He was a warrior fighting for the happiness and well-being of his family. And no matter the cost, he would see this battle through to its end. With newfound determination, Logan sought solace in the wisdom of the retired psychologist, Dr. Montgomery. Their conversations were like lifelines, guiding Logan through the labyrinth of Ethan's fears with empathy and understanding. Dr. Montgomery shared stories of resilience and triumph, offering insights that sparked a glimmer of hope in Logan's heart. He learned that sometimes the greatest challenges held the seeds of the most profound growth. Armed with this newfound perspective, Logan approached his son with renewed compassion, his words infused with empathy and patience. He vowed to be Ethan's unwavering ally, no matter the darkness that loomed ahead. However, the more Logan tried to get Ethan to open up to him about what was bothering him, the more Ethan retreated. This was becoming too much for Logan to bear. How was he going to communicate with his son? Their family was hanging by a thread, and he didn't know what to do. His wife was barely speaking to him. It was almost unbearable to be in the house with all the tension. It seemed like it was up to him to fix it. Despite his efforts, Ethan remained distant, his silence a barrier Logan couldn't breach. The once vibrant light in his son's eyes had dimmed, replaced by a haunting emptiness that echoed through their home. Logan felt like a sailor lost at sea, searching desperately for a beacon to guide him through the darkness. But, with each passing day, the storm within their family raged on, threatening to consume them all. He longed for the warmth of Sarah's embrace, for the laughter and joy that once filled their home. But it felt like a distant dream, slipping further from his grasp with each passing moment. One fateful night, as Logan lay on the couch, his mind tormented by the echoes of his son's silent suffering, he reached his breaking point. The weight of their fractured family bore down on him like a crushing wave, threatening to drown him in despair. He couldn't continue like this, trapped in a cycle of uncertainty and fear. With a heavy heart and trembling hands, Logan made a decision. He would confront Ethan, no matter the cost. He couldn't bear to watch his son suffer in silence any longer. The next morning, as Ethan prepared to leave for school, Logan took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. With a voice laced with determination, he called out to his son, "Ethan, we need to talk." Ethan turned to him, his eyes wide with surprise. "Dad, what's wrong?" Logan took a moment to gather his thoughts, his heart pounding in his chest. "I know something's been bothering you, Ethan. I can see it in your eyes, feel it in the air, but you can't keep it bottled up inside. You have to talk to me, son." Ethan's gaze faltered, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his features. But before he could respond, the school bus pulled up outside their home, its doors opening with a hiss of air. With a heavy heart, Logan watched as Ethan hurried off to school, the weight of their unresolved conversation hanging heavy in the air. But he knew that this was just the beginning, the first step on the long road to healing their fractured family, and no matter what lay ahead, Logan was determined to see it through, for the sake of his son and the love that bound them together. Logan almost didn't want to let Ethan run off to the bus that day. He had a nagging feeling, an itch at the back of his mind that warned him something wasn't right. Watching the familiar yellow bus dwindle into the horizon, a knot of anxiety tightened in his stomach. Had he done the right thing? It wasn't like him to worry without cause, but today, his instinct screamed that trouble was brewing, and he couldn't shake off the unease that clung to him, like a second skin. The crux of his concern wasn't something tangible, not a threat he could confront head-on. It was the nagging suspicion that he was being kept in the dark about something significant. And there, at the heart of his son's routine, was Mr. Johnson, the bus driver. This man was the first adult Ethan interacted with every day, someone who held a fleeting yet impactful presence in his son's life. Logan had nothing concrete against the man, but intuition told him that if there was a puzzle to solve, Mr. Johnson held a piece of it. Deciding against waiting passively for disaster to strike, Logan took action. He called his workplace, his voice steady, but filled with a gravity that brooked no argument. He cited an urgent family matter as his reason for needing the day off. Once the call ended, a plan began to take shape in his mind. His course of action was admittedly irrational and perhaps a tad reckless, but the stakes he felt justified the means. He wouldn't give up so easily. With Ethan safely off to school, Logan embarked on his mission to learn more about Mr. Johnson. The bus route wasn't a mystery, and figuring out the layovers and stops wasn't rocket science. As he walked towards his garage, he couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. It was as if something was off, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. He got into his car and turned the ignition, but before he could even shift into gear, Sarah appeared in front of him, blocking his way. He rolled down the driver's side window to see her face, and was met with a warm smile. But then came the moment of truth. He knew he had to make a decision, one that could potentially change the course of his life. He hesitated for a moment, wondering if he should tell her the truth, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. Instead, he looked up at her and said, "I'm off to work, love." Sarah kissed him goodbye, unaware of the shady business he was about to get into. He pulled out of the garage and drove away, his mind racing with thoughts of what was about to transpire. Logan drove his car as fast as he dared to catch up to the bus. After a few minutes, he finally spotted the yellow shape in the distance. Once he was half a block away, he slowed down. He knew that he needed to keep a respectful distance from the bus. He couldn't endanger anyone, especially children, just because of his snooping. As he followed, he watched as kids were picked up at their respective stops. The bus eventually got to the school and dropped off all of the kids. Now, it was time for Logan to act. He had to see what Mr. Johnson got up to. Logan follows the bus for what feels like forever. Finally, the bus rolled into the local depot for its midday break. Logan had been anticipating a confrontation with Mr. Johnson. Logan was hoping to get some answers, or at least some insight into the man beyond his job as a bus driver. But what he saw as he approached him was unexpected and intriguing. Mr. Johnson wasn't alone. He was surrounded by a group of people. Logan knew very well that the bus driver wasn't supposed to have random people at the bus depot. He needed to get closer to investigate. He felt so close to busting the driver for something illegal, but he had no idea what he was getting into. As Logan got closer, he saw that they were carrying boxes into a van. It was definitely something sketchy. But Logan was about to make a fatal mistake. He walked forward, hiding behind the bus, stubbed his toe on a loose brick he didn't see, and yelped. The echo of Logan's yelp cut through the busy murmurs like a knife. Time seemed to slow as every head turned in his direction, their expressions a mix of surprise and curiosity. Logan, frozen with a mix of pain and embarrassment, locked eyes with Mr. Johnson, whose initial shock quickly gave way to recognition, and then, surprisingly, a warm smile. "Logan, right? Ethan's dad?" Mr. Johnson called out. His tone was friendly, but carrying an undertone of confusion about why Logan would be sneaking around the depot. The group around him, a diverse mix of individuals of various ages, paused their work and looked on with interest. Logan, feeling every bit the intruder, but too far in to back out now, limped forward, trying to regain some semblance of dignity. He looked over at Mr. Johnson with a smile. "Yeah, that's me. I was just curious," Logan managed to say, feeling the weight of their gazes. "What's going on here, Mr. Johnson? This doesn't look like regular bus driver duties to me," Logan inquired, trying to sound more confident than he felt. His imagination had run wild with the possibilities, none of which seemed to fit the scene before him. Mr. Johnson chuckled softly, a sound that disarmed Logan's suspicion. "Well, you've caught us," he said, gesturing to the group and the boxes. "But it's not what you're thinking. We're not doing anything illegal. These are supplies for a local charity I run." He continued. "We're packing food parcels and educational supplies for underprivileged kids in the community." The revelation took Logan aback. He had been so convinced that he was about to uncover something nefarious, yet here was Mr. Johnson, doing something genuinely noble. A wave of guilt washed over Logan for having doubted the man's character. Logan started, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to accuse you of anything. I just saw people in boxes and thought—" "I don't know what I thought," Logan stammered, feeling foolish. "No harm done," Mr. Johnson assured him, his smile never wavering. "In fact, why don't you join us? It could be a good way to see what we're all about. Maybe even Ethan would like to help out sometime." The offer caught Logan by surprise. He had come here expecting to confront a man he thought was hiding something dark. Instead, he found a community of people coming together to make a difference. It was a humbling experience, one that made him reconsider his approach to suspicion and trust. "Thank you, I'd like that, and I think Ethan would too," Logan said, feeling a genuine smile spread across his face for the first time since he had arrived. As he joined the group, helping to pack boxes and listening to their stories, Logan felt a sense of community and purpose he hadn't realized he'd been missing. What started as a misadventure, spurred by suspicion, turned into the beginning of a new chapter for Logan, one where he learned the value of giving people the benefit of the doubt and the importance of being part of something bigger than himself. The day ended with Logan and Mr. Johnson shaking hands. They weren't adversaries as he thought, but they were allies in a common cause. Logan left the depot that day not just with a newfound respect for the bus driver, the anticipation of bringing Ethan into this circle of kindness and generosity. It was an unexpected turn of events, one that Logan would look back on as a pivotal moment in his life. But Ethan's problems haven't been solved yet. Logan had no idea that the very next day, the bus driver would have a warning for him. Ethan was equally quiet that afternoon. Logan hadn't told his family that he had investigated the bus driver. He didn't see any reason to. He tried getting some info out of Ethan, but he was just as quiet as usual. He ate his dinner in silence and went to bed. The next morning, Ethan got ready for school, and Logan tossed his hair as he walked out to the bus. This time, he wanted to be with Ethan when he got on. Once again, Logan wanted to speak to him, but the bus really had to get back to its route. Strangely enough, Mr. Johnson was trying to get his attention. But before anything happened, Logan found himself face to face with the school bus driver, Mr. Johnson. Before the bus drove off to school, the driver came up to Logan, looking like he had something on his mind. "Mr. Clark, how are you? I just wanted to mention something to you. Your son, Ethan, he's a good boy, I can see that. But lately, he's been really down in the dumps. He is not his usual self. I think you need to talk to him. I think I have my suspicions, but please talk to him. I hate to see him this way." Logan was surprised that even Mr. Johnson was concerned about his son. It made him even more concerned than ever. "Mr. Johnson, I've tried talking to him, but he doesn't want to open up to me. Please tell me what your suspicions are so that I can help him in the best way possible." Mr. Johnson looked at Logan with sympathy in his eyes. "Mr. Clark, I think your son is being bullied at school. I've even seen them teasing him on the bus, and I put a stop to it immediately. I could be wrong, but please talk to him. Make him open up to you." As the day wore on, Logan found himself consumed by a whirlwind of emotions. Doubt, fear, and determination clashed within him, each vying for dominance as he awaited Ethan's return from school. When the clock struck 2 p.m. and Ethan stepped through the front door, Logan could see the weight of the world upon his young shoulders. His son's eyes held a weariness that tore at Logan's heart, a silent plea for understanding. With a gentle yet firm resolve, Logan guided Ethan to the living room, where they settled onto the couch. The air between them crackled with tension, but Logan refused to back down. "Ethan, I need you to trust me," Logan began, his voice steady despite the turmoil raging within him. "I know something's been bothering you, and I won't rest until we get to the bottom of it." Ethan shifted uncomfortably, his gaze fixed on the floor. "It's nothing, Dad. Just school stuff." Logan's heart sank at the evasion, but he refused to give up. "Ethan, I spoke to Mr. Johnson today. He's worried about you, son. He thinks you might be getting bullied." Ethan's eyes widened in shock, a flicker of fear crossing his features, before he quickly masked it with a forced nonchalance. "Bullied? Dad, no, it's nothing like that. I can handle it." Logan's heart shattered at the sight of his son's brave facade crumbling before him. He reached out, placing a hand on Ethan's shoulder, his touch gentle yet firm. "Ethan, you don't have to face this alone. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. But you have to tell me the truth. Are you being bullied?" Ethan hesitated, his shoulders slumping as the weight of his secret threatened to overwhelm him. Finally, in a barely audible whisper, he confessed, "Yes, Dad. I'm being bullied." Logan's heart clenched with a mixture of anguish and fury. Anguish at the pain his son had endured in silence, and fury at the perpetrators who had inflicted such torment upon him. Without a word, Logan pulled Ethan into a tight embrace, holding him close as tears threatened to spill from his own eyes. "I'm so sorry, Ethan. I should have known. I should have been there for you." Ethan buried his face in his father's chest, his own tears mingling with Logan's as years of pent-up emotion poured forth. In that moment, the walls of silence crumbled, and father and son found solace in each other's arms. But amidst the tears and the pain, there was also a glimmer of hope. For the first time in months, Logan felt a sense of clarity, a purpose driving him forward. He would confront the bullies, he would stand up for his son, and he would ensure that Ethan never had to face such cruelty again. Together, they would navigate the stormy seas of adolescence, hand in hand, father and son united against whatever challenges lay ahead. With a newfound resolve burning in his chest, Logan knew he had to take action. He gently pulled away from the embrace, his eyes meeting Ethan's with unwavering determination. "Ethan, listen to me," Logan said, his voice firm yet filled with compassion. "You are not alone in this. We are going to face this together, but we need to take the first step. I'm going to talk to your school, and we'll put a stop to this once and for all." Ethan's eyes widened with a mixture of relief and uncertainty. "But what if it makes things worse, Dad? What if they retaliate?" Logan shook his head, his conviction unwavering. "We can't let fear dictate our actions, Ethan. We have to stand up for what's right, no matter the cost. And I promise you, I won't rest until those bullies are held accountable for their actions." With a heavy heart, Ethan nodded, a flicker of hope igniting within him. For the first time in months, he felt a glimmer of optimism, a belief that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. As Logan made arrangements to meet with the school authorities, he couldn't shake the feeling of unease gnawing at his insides. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but he refused to falter. For Ethan's sake, for his family's sake, he would see this through to the end. Together, father and son stood on the precipice of change, ready to confront the darkness that had threatened to tear them apart. And as they faced the storm together, Logan knew that no matter what lay ahead, they would emerge stronger, united in their unwavering love and resilience. As Logan prepared to confront the school authorities, a sense of urgency gripped him. He couldn't afford to waste any more time while his son suffered in silence. With determination fueling his steps, Logan marched into the school, his jaw set with resolve. He demanded to speak to the principal, his voice echoing with a firmness that brooked no argument. The principal, taken aback by Logan's intensity, ushered him into her office, concern etched on her face. "Mr. Clark, what brings you here today?" Logan wasted no time in getting to the point. "My son Ethan is being bullied at this school, and I won't stand for it any longer. I need your assurance that immediate action will be taken to address this issue." The principal's expression softened, her eyes filled with sympathy. "I'm sorry to hear that, Mr. Clark. Bullying is a serious matter, and we take it very seriously here at our school. Please, tell me everything you know, and we'll do everything in our power to put a stop to it." Logan recounted Ethan's ordeal, his voice trembling with emotion as he described the pain and suffering his son had endured. The principal listened attentively, her expression growing more determined with each passing moment. "Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Mr. Clark. I assure you that we will launch a thorough investigation into these allegations, and the perpetrators will face appropriate consequences. No child should have to endure such cruelty." Relief flooded through Logan as he left the principal's office. A weight lifted from his shoulders. Finally, after months of anguish and uncertainty, he had taken the first step towards justice for his son. As he stepped out into the sunlight, a sense of hope blossomed within him. No matter the challenges that lay ahead, he knew that he would face them head-on, fueled by the love he held for his son and the unwavering belief that together they could overcome anything. With the wheels of change set in motion, Logan felt a renewed sense of purpose coursing through his veins. He knew there was still a long road ahead, but for the first time in what felt like an eternity, he dared to believe that things could get better. As he returned home, he found Sarah waiting for him, her eyes filled with a mixture of concern and curiosity. "Logan, what happened at the school? Is everything okay?" Logan enveloped Sarah in a tight embrace, his heart overflowing with gratitude for her unwavering support. "Sarah, I spoke to the principal. They're going to investigate the bullying, and they've assured me that they'll take appropriate action. We're finally going to put a stop to this." Relief flooded through Sarah's features as she clung to Logan, a weight lifted from her shoulders. "Oh, Logan, that's wonderful news. I was so worried about Ethan. Thank you for taking charge and standing up for him." In that moment, as they held each other close, Logan felt a profound sense of connection with Sarah, a bond strengthened by the trials they had endured together. For the first time in months, he saw a glimmer of the woman he had fallen in love with, the woman who had stood by his side through thick and thin. With a newfound sense of unity, Logan and Sarah vowed to face whatever challenges lay ahead as a team, their love for each other and their son serving as a beacon of hope in the darkness. And as they looked towards the future, hand in hand, they knew that no matter what trials awaited them, they would face them together, stronger and more resilient than ever before. As the days passed, Ethan began to open up to his parents more, the weight of his secret slowly lifting from his shoulders. With their unwavering support, he found the courage to confront the bullies and stand up for himself. With each passing victory, Ethan's confidence grew, his smile returning brighter than ever before. And as he stepped into the light, no longer shackled by fear, he discovered a newfound strength within himself. He began sleeping in his own bed, causing much relief in the Clark household. Ethan was his old self again. In the days that followed, Logan and Sarah worked tirelessly to support Ethan as he navigated the aftermath of the bullying incident. Together, they created a safe and nurturing environment where Ethan felt empowered to share his feelings and fears without reservation. With the help of the school's intervention, Ethan began to heal, his confidence slowly returning with each passing day. And as the weeks turned into months, the shadow of fear that had once plagued their family began to dissipate, replaced by a newfound sense of resilience and unity. Logan and Sarah's relationship blossomed once again, strengthened by their shared determination to protect their son and each other. They rediscovered the joy of laughter and companionship, cherishing every moment they spent together as a family.